for Wednesday, April 24th, 2019. Review of work session discussion meeting minutes.
I think they are still in process.
Okay. All right. Department head report. Any department heads would like to report on anything? Tim? I'm sorry, Dave.
No.
He beat you to it. So.
All right, hey, good morning, everybody. Tim Ishman, Director of Recreation and Tourism. Just want to give you a couple of updates. Got a meeting set up for Tuesday afternoon next week with Michael Pure, the auditor for the room tax. We're going to begin that process. So I'll keep you before we go through short sessions. So I want to know that a meeting has been set for that. Meeting today at 3 o'clock with a sponsor that helps us with some funding for the Barn Bash at 3 o'clock, and then we'll begin our marketing materials out by the end of the week for the upcoming Barn Bash. Earth Day is this Saturday at Raccoon State Creek Park from 11 to 3. An article in the paper today with it. There's been news release or social pushes on this, mostly going out for big groups that are participating. Last year we had about 300 people. Weather's going to be nice, a little cool, but it'll still be sunny, not raining, which is good. So we're expecting to have a pretty good turnout for that again as well. If you want to come, you're welcome to show up. National Tourism Week is the week of May 5th. I sent you a release that's been going in the newspaper for release to go out. We'll also be putting out on tourism Facebook posts with about one post each day on something unique about tourism and its relevance and how important it is. So that'll be something again to educate people on what we do. Working still with Ambridge and Old Economy, they've asked me to come to some meetings and sit down with them. 2024 Old Economy celebrates its 200th year anniversary, so we're kind of planning 5 years out and preparing for maybe a year-long celebration of that destination. So again, we're just at the beginning stages of that. So that's kind of an encouraging thing that groups of individuals are trying to bring people into the area. So that's important for us to participate with that. Let's see here. I would like if I could participate in executive session of personnel matter at the end of the meeting. Let's see here. Talking with Amanda and looking at our schedule for the ice arena. We're at the time where we're starting to wind down. Speaking with our tennis users and other groups that come in, we could really close at 4:30 on Saturdays for the month of May rather than waiting till Memorial Day. So I would like to adjust those hours on Saturday in the month of May to rather be open until 9 o'clock at night with really nobody in the building to cut back on that side of it. So I can get the consensus to move ahead and make that adjustment so we can promote that to our patrons that come through the facility. Saturdays only, we'll be cutting that time back from 9 o'clock to 4:30.
I don't have a problem with that. I would suggest that you get that out on social media and blast it everywhere so that somebody doesn't show up and.
We'll put some signs on the door too.
Yeah.
We'll do the best we can to inform people. There are people that are just going to pull up.
Right.
Unless it rains, and which again you just don't know. I mean, that's the only time you might see, I think, the occasional tennis player want to come in and play that late at night in May. So I think that's just making the adjustments to tighten the screws as we can to manage it a little more effectively. All Shelter 2 rentals have been notified and understand what's going on. So regarding the power, so that's a done deal. And then, not that we need to do anything with it now, but I'd like further dialogue. Seems like the last 2 to 3 months, we've been watching an escalation at public session of parents dropping kids off that aren't skating. And basically it's becoming a hangout, creating some issues for us. So we have a no loitering policy, but it is a public facility. So we've got to find that happy medium there in regards to how to regulate that to a degree, because it's just becoming disruptive with multiple school districts, and for whatever reason, when there is an issue, they sometimes end up in our lap, and we just try to minimize that as much as possible, because they're there for public skating. That's what they should be there for, and not just simply being dropped off where we become, babysitters watching them run throughout the building and whatnot. We've seen a couple of complaints from tennis people, kids on the track carrying on, upstairs, just things where they shouldn't be, but they're not skating, they're just there to hang out.
I can attest to that. I am there Friday and Saturday with a child who skates.
Okay.
But compliment to the sheriff's department, the deputies keep that all tight and in line. There have been several incidents, and they take off running.
They do a great
And
job,
they do a
100%.
great job at stopping it and removing the people that need to be removed.
And that's all I have. Should have questions from you. Thank you.
Any questions? Dave?
I'd like to talk for a moment about my detective bureau. The collective bargaining agreement expires, and discussions so far have not resolved the issue of the number of detectives in the contract. I've been informed that either there currently has been proposed to have no number or a reduced number. Currently I have 8 guaranteed detectives in the detective bureau. There are rumors that the board wants to reduce that number to 6. And I found that outrageous. So I'm going to defend my detectives and the need for the 8 detectives. Right now we have about 35 police departments in Beaver County. A portion of the county is governed or policed by the state police, but we have 35 police departments. And very few of those departments have detectives. Most of them are predominantly part-time individuals, or they're full-time, but they're on the road, they're on the street. They don't have time to serve as detectives. The police departments right now have trouble hiring police officers. They have trouble hiring part-time police officers. So few officers out there coming out of school, or the ones that do come out of school, they don't stay in Beaver County. We have 8 detectives because the state police are also having trouble recruiting. They have fewer people coming out of the state police academy than they have people retiring. So there's a shrinking state police force at the same time. So my 8 detectives fill that gap. They provide the investigative and the forensic support for these 35 police departments. Now, if I lose 2 of my detectives, we're talking about 25% of my force. We're talking about the inability to investigate a large number of crimes. Now, I can't go out and ask the public to reduce the number of crimes. I can't just go out and say, everybody calm down, we're not going to have as many rapes next year because my budget won't allow 8 detectives. That's not the way it works. What we would have to do is to scale back the types of crimes that my detectives investigate so that I can budget the number of bodies. So let's say that I write a letter to the police chiefs and municipalities. I say I've lost 2 detectives, and those 2 detectives are the ones who help those municipalities investigate rapes, domestic violence, elder abuse, child abuse. We'll tell those municipalities, police departments, that we're no longer going to provide that support for them. So if they have a rape case, they're going to have to resolve it themselves or call the state police, and again, which don't have sufficient personnel now. So I can stop investigating rapes and sexual assaults if you want me to. Another option would be the drug incidents. As you know, we have done very well. First, the drug battle cannot be won, but we have done as well as any county in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We have more cases filed for drug delivery resulting in death than I think any other county in the state in the last 3 years. We've prosecuted in excess of 30. That's the drug task force. That's my drug task force working with the Attorney General's office, with the federal government and our municipalities, with the DEA and the FBI. We worked very well as a group, and that's 2 of my detectives practically full-time. So an option would be to just stop doing the drug work from my office. Now, I spent 2 years lobbying our senators, our congressmen, the vice president, working with the U.S. Attorney, working with the DEA, the FBI, the state police, the district attorney in Allegheny County, the DA of Washington County to create the HITE, the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Task Force. We got $2 million this year from the federal government to support increased drug investigations cooperation among the 3 counties, Washington, Allegheny, and Beaver. My component of that is 2 full-time detectives for the drug trade. 2 detectives that run the drug task force, 2 detectives that work with all these government agencies. Now, an option would be for me to write a letter to the U.S. Attorney and say, I'm sorry, but all this lobbying, all these discussions, this great task force we have erected to do joint investigative effort in Beaver County is being abandoned by the commissioners, and we'll start turning back the federal money. We'll tell the state attorney general to keep his $89,000 a year that he gives us every year to help support our detective bureau. We'll stop taking in drug forfeiture funds. And we'll stop emptying drug take-back boxes. And we'll just tell all the municipalities, if you have a drug dealer up the street, you're gonna have to call somebody else, because I'm no longer in business to do that. That would be 20% of my detectives. Another option would be the ESU. Now that's one full-time detective, and 5 of my detectives participate in the ESU in some capacity, either as sniper, or as negotiators, or operating the Bearcat, or command staff, or door entry. 5 of my detectives, 1 full-time. Now, if you wanted me to, I could shut down the ESU. We could give all that equipment back to the Region 13. We could give the Bearcat back to Region 13. And we could write a letter to all these police departments and all the municipalities and all the school boards. We could say, ESU is now shut down. So we'll tell the principals that if they have a hostage incident in a middle school, they'll just have to wait 4 hours for the state police to get here, because you've told me that I don't have the staff to do this. I need 8 detectives to do this job. Right now I'm down to 7 due to retirement. I can't hire a highly qualified individual without a guaranteed number in that contract, because I'm taking officers who are currently vesting in local police departments. I'm taking them, an experienced officer, and putting them in a new job. And they're not going to make that transition without a guarantee that they'll be here to earn a pension here. And I don't want a retiree from another department, because when you get a retiree, you get a retiree. I need a highly qualified individual to fill Detective Tim Staub's position. I need a guarantee of 8 detectives to do my job. I think that you'll have to agree, law enforcement is one of the burdens that we as county elected officials have. We have to support our county. And the role we play right now is crucial. In this time of small, fractured communities, small part-time police departments, they need the forensic support of highly qualified detectives. I've got $250,000 worth of software computers upstairs that allow us to break down a phone within an hour of crime, rather than sending it off to a crime lab somewhere and you wait 6 months. We can solve crimes for our local municipalities faster because they're here and they know the county, rather than having some agency that brings in someone from Scranton who's now going to be investigating crimes here. They don't know the families, they don't know the names, they don't know the individuals, they don't know the streets, they don't know the personalities of police departments. Having a homegrown detective bureau is what allows us to solve crimes, allows us to do our job well. And I ask you to reaffirm the contingent of 8 detectives for our collective bargaining agreement. I think we deserve it. I think the people of Beaver County deserve that investment. We can't rely on municipalities. Again, we've got half a dozen departments out there that have a detective, at least one detective in their bureau. But even they need assistance from us because of the major crimes that happen. And the other departments have no detectives. They need our support, and I need your support. Thank you.
All right. Any other department head? Hearing none, we'll move to Corey Troutman from Susquehanna for a financial accounting report.
All right, copies are on the front there if anybody wants one, but we're just going to highlight the activity for the first quarter, budget to actual. Revenues, so far this year, through March, we've received $45.4 million, which is about 57.8% of the budget. That total is up by approximately $7.9 million over last year's period. Most of that's attributed to the real estate taxes. We've seen increases in the collections year to date of about $8 million. We flip down through that. So year to date, we've received about $42.8 million in property tax revenue. That's about 76% of the budget. Most of that is attributable to tax bills being out early, and just the collections increasing for that. As a result of that, we'll be looking, just for your benefit, to repay the line of credit here pretty soon. I think we're going to try and process that today to get for your approval. The repayment of that, and that is about $8 million is where that stands right now. So as far as the other departmental earnings and our governmental revenue, there's nothing really big to point out there. Reimbursement income, the real estate tax side on the revenue is really the big one. Flipping back to page 3, expenditures. Through March, we're at $16.6 million. That's about 21.2% of the budget, so we're tracking about where we expected to at this point in time. Spending is up about $1.8 million over last year's first 3 months, and that's primarily due to we made our payment on the 2017 bond in March. This year, that was about $3.4 million, and that's offset by approximately, I think it was 1.8 if you flip down through reduction, or we hadn't made the subsidy payments yet for a couple of internal departments, and those will go out here shortly. So that's just a timing issue. There's really nothing to point out there. But most of this trends about what we expected, pretty consistent with the prior years, other than those items that I pointed out. Looking back at departmental notes, page 5, there were 4 departments that had expenditures over 25%. So at this point of the year, we're looking at about 25% the first quarter. The VA's office was at 26.6%. Most of that's really just due to the timing of the payments for the flags that were purchased. Nothing that concerns me from a budget standpoint. ESU is a little bit ahead. That's something I am looking into, but that's also something that will be reimbursed. It's on a reimbursement basis, so nothing really of concern there from an overall budget standpoint. Library Commission is at 46.9%. That timing is consistent with the prior years. We get the money in and it goes out to them in subsidy payments, so nothing of a budget concern there. Debt payments and administration, as I mentioned, a $3.5 million payment on the 2017 bond, so that's up, but nothing that concerns me from an overall budget standpoint. And then county matches and subsidies were $2.6 million, and that's in line with where we normally are at this point in time for subsidies and payments. So that's pretty much the report. If you flip back through, I gave you the details of all that information, pages 6 through 7, as well as the balance sheet on page 9. And I'll just point out that we are up about $8 million, which is primarily due to that real estate taxes and cash assets, so that's why we're going to be looking at that line of credit back.
For the line of credit, I know you can't probably give it an exact amount, but paying it off early will save us some money.
Yeah, it's going to be well over $100,000, probably $150 or so in interest, potentially save.
I had that conversation with Corey before we came in here, because I reviewed this last night, and asked him that is coordinating the budget earlier, even if we could get it 2 weeks earlier, that allows the treasurer's office to print those bills and then have them then go out on the 1st of January, where sometimes they're going out on like the next week. And that means that just prolongs that money coming in. So maybe, during our budget season, this coming season, we could try and work out that we are a drop date of 2 weeks before.
Yeah, and I think generally speaking, we'd like to pass it, early December, if not slightly before that. So that's the timeline we tried to work on last year. We got into a couple of wrinkles, but I would anticipate the same timeline this year, trying to hit early December for passage.
Any other questions for Corey from the board? Does the audience have any questions for Corey? Because I believe he's going to go back to the office and do some more work. So, Mr. Woolley.
Hi, how are you? The college that was delayed by 6 months till next fiscal year, that still needs to be done because of the way the budget was created?
That'll be something we can talk about. I mean, right now we don't have firm accrual numbers on the budget, but we still anticipate we're going to be ahead from last year's budget. So that'll be something for the commissioners to consider you know, if that's something that we want to put back into this budget from surpluses from prior year, or how you want to.
So either that, or there'll be a big steep
Correct, we're gonna
increase
have
in
to pay it
requirement.
eventually. Right,
Yeah,
eventually.
so let's
the
do it
question
with
is-
this year.
Yeah, but that wasn't, that's not addressed in the first 3
Right,
months.
that's
Yep.
item on the list.
Yep.
The library, you said that
Yes.
timing. Do we adjust the budget for next year for that time? You said this is consistent with what's happened in the past. So we can't even judge whether that expenditure is in line or out.
Well,
In other words, it should be front-end loaded based on the
Well-
expenditures we do.
Yeah, so we budget annually, so the budget that you see is an annual budget. So
True.
what I point out is any expenditures that are in excess of the 25%, so we're a quarter of the way through the year, just to give the commissioners an idea of, and the public an idea, okay, these are the ones that we need to look at, and then here are the reasons why they are. So for
But in that
example,
case, yeah.
the
in that-
library, you're looking at a full year's budget, we probably paid half of the allocation that we're gonna pay to them, because the money comes in and we, you know, through the state, and we pass that through to the library.
Okay,
And
but if
that's
that's
the piece that we're talking
consistent,
about.
then maybe it ought to be a front-end loaded budget. So we don't look at this as a concern now, if that happens every first
Well,
quarter.
Right, and that's not a concern. What you're looking at is cash flow. This is like the annual budget. So what we're looking at is just things that would stand out that might be budgetary issues. And that's why we go through and look at those items over 25% in this case and say, okay, is this an issue from a budgetary standpoint, or is it just the timing of how those payments are going to be made?
But
which
it's
is cash flow.
consistent, it is consistent.
Correct.
Timing
Well,
with the past.
what is consistent is when we receive the money, it goes to the library. So we
Yeah.
don't hold on to it. So depending on when the state remits us payment is when they will receive it.
But it's in line, I mean,
It
you're
is
not.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I just wonder why the budget doesn't adjust. And the capital expenditures, I think the indication was that this year, perhaps unlike previous years, if there is a capital need, like we were talking about vehicles for the Parks Department, that comes from a reserve, not from the department
So-
budget. Is that in line?
So, right, so what we set up this year when we budgeted was a general capital project. So
Yeah.
it wasn't allocated to specific projects yet because we were waiting on more information to develop on the other items that are still not clear from a budgetary picture. So, you know, negotiations, et cetera. And really, I mean, there's money set aside, but until we know what the ultimate outcome of those is, you know, that's a pot of money that's a reserve right now for capital projects, and will really depend on how much money can be spent on that.
But things do adjust by timing,
Correct.
like the roof on this place.
Correct.
May not have been planned. So the guy who wants to buy a park vehicle, how do you analyze whether we still have projected money to pay for that when things like this appear unplanned?
Right, so we have reserve, I mean, we have reserves in the form of prior fund balance, if you will. You know, that if we need to use, we can come before the commissioners, and that, you know, we'll have to make a decision whether or not to use it on those particular items.
Is it more adjusted that way this year than last year, that there is a central reserve as opposed to a department reserve? Like when he came in last month to ask about a new vehicle, that used to be, I believe, a budget reserve maintained by his department.
Director Coyle had that in his budget for a new vehicle.
Yeah,
That
there are
wasn't-
certain
that
things
wasn't
that-
pulled- That
yeah.
wasn't pulled out of the capital reserve.
Okay, that was what
When
I
he
had
prepared his
understood of
budget
that.
for 2019, he put that in there as if the sheriff was planning on getting new cars, or the district attorney was planning on getting new cars for 2020.
Okay.
They would put that in their budget. That wouldn't come out of the capital projects budget.
Yeah, and the capital project budget, the other thing that's in there is, you know, we weren't sure really where the funding, I mean, on the voting machines and that kind of stuff was really
Right.
applied for. So we needed clarity on that particular item before, I mean, allocating additional funds. But the things that we knew were going to need to be replaced would have been put into the departmental budget to the extent that they were necessary. It's the other things that, you know, we'll fund out of that, if you will, the contingency
Right.
items. The things
Like
that we
the
know are
issue-
gonna come up, just don't know what they are yet.
The issue with the voting machines had been accounted for when the budget was set. That is not looked at as a challenge to the reserves.
Right.
Mr. Woolley, I think that what you're thinking of, and tell me if I'm wrong or right, that you're concerned about the long-term strategic plan on our capital, on the overall county government.
Yes,
So that we know what to expect, that this roof is a 20-year roof, and in 20 years we're gonna have to replace it, which means we need to set aside 5 or 10 every year to plan for this.
yes.
And what is happening, and we've talked about this at length, we're working with DCED to put that into the early intervention plan. There's the phase 1 from the report that we got from PFM. Phase 2 is now going to be implemented, and that grant funding from DCED can help with a firm to come in to develop that report, gather all that information, and tell us what we'll need in the next 20 years and how much it'll cost, how much we need to save every year, and contingencies, what if something goes wrong. So
Yeah,
that's getting in the process of, because we just got that phase 2, so we're working on that.
Okay, but it's that step function that has me concerned that it's being tackled and that there is not a concern budget-wise, because, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Corey, you mentioned that there is a surplus from 2018. What's the amount of that surplus?
Yes.
On a cash basis, we were up probably about, and I'm gonna ballpark and give you a specific number, probably about $4 million, plus or minus. I mean, 4 to 5, I'd say maybe. We don't have exact accrual numbers yet. Those will come once we get through the audit process. Now, some of that is gonna be, monies that were set aside for that we budgeted for, about $1 million. That's gonna be utilized on that. And there were some items that we had budgeted for that didn't come to fruition from a capital planning standpoint. So most of that will be set aside for those type of purposes, but that's a cash basis though. I can get you specific numbers on that.
So that said, how would you characterize the county's financial situation right now?
I'd say, we've been improving. We're taking steps in the right direction. I think that'll put us not exactly where where the target is for the reserve, if you will, the operating reserve, but it gets us closer in line to where we were. So improving.
Not healthy yet, but getting there?
Well, I wouldn't say not healthy. It's just, there's a certain amount, when you get to a certain size, we'd like to see certain percentages there. I think this gets us closer to that, somewhat subjective, but more stable, I would say.
And last question, looking through this, I don't see, you track a lot of different things. I know wages and overtime is a large amount of the county's budget. How are we on track particularly with that right now? I didn't quite see that outlined in here.
Yeah, overtime is up a little bit, which isn't inconsistent with this time of year. It's something we are looking into, trying to reduce, continue to reduce that as we go forward with part-time, staff and those kind of things. So it is something we're looking at. We're slightly ahead of budget at this point, but not, I can get you more information on that as well.
I appreciate that.
Here we go, Mr. Wetzel first.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Wetzel, yes.
Oh, I'm kidding. No, go ahead.
Just a question on the IRS information that's been reported. If in fact there are payments that have not been remitted to the federal government, there should be an out of balance condition in the internal accounts, I would think, where those monies could be held. And I realize it's not as simple as just looking whether those accounts are at zero, because there obviously is fluctuation in process accounts. But is there any work on whether there are excess balances on a year-to-date or historical basis in those particular process accounts?
I was going to talk about this.
to get everyone up to speed, we were just made aware, the majority of us were just made aware yesterday, that there was a federal tax lien filed against the county that appears to deal with 2018 withholdings and a 2016, what we don't know at this point yet, but it probably also has something to do with a payroll withholding as well. We just got this 24 hours ago. Internally, it doesn't appear that there's large sums of, directly answer your question, Tim, money out there that isn't accounted for. But we just got this, we're looking at it, we're speaking with the IRS, trying to determine exactly what these are for, exactly where that money is at, and then ultimately to get the IRS paid off if they are in fact due that money. So at this point, we don't really have much more than that information that's already out there, and that we're continuing to work on this with payroll, HR, and the law department to get this issue resolved.
Thank you.
Mr. Hughes, it's good to see you.
I have, I'm from Hopewell, so, but I'm here to represent the taxpayers. And just real quick, I'm looking at this, and 66% of this budget is being eaten up by salaries and benefits and debt payments. The debt payments are going to escalate through the roof in the next 3 years. Is anyone concerned about the taxpayers? Because I love when I come here because everyone's asking for more, more, more. You know, we already lost 1,000 people according to the census. People are going to be leaving here in droves. You can only milk the cow so long. You know, we have an elderly population here that cannot sustain the government that we once had in the glory days of Al Equipment and whatnot. Those mills are gone. Cracker plant's not saving place. I mean, some serious fiscal responsibility has to be taken, and especially with these row officers and that. And I'm in and out of here a lot. I speak to a ton of people, and the taxpayers are fed up with the constant requests for more toys, new stuff. Everyone needs this, and I understand, you know, the crime problem, but you know what? Political grandstanding and saying, well, I could cut out the heroin, or I could do this or that. You got to look at it from the taxpayer's standpoint. And when you come up and you ask for more things, you should have facts and figures. That here's my solving case. Here's the cases we take in. Here's what my guys are doing. But you just come up and ask, and we don't see any facts or figures. Or is your crime rate way down because of those 8? Or if we reduce to 6, would you telling us it's going to go through the roof with no facts or figures? You're just asking for pie in the sky.
Our drug death rate dropped 70% in 2 years, and our DUI death rate dropped 90% in 3 years.
Okay.
So yes.
So those detectives are responsible for that.
The detectives are largely responsible for the reduction in drug deaths by good enforcement and by drug task force working
Right.
with other municipalities and other agencies.
Let me ask you, what is the cost effectiveness to what we're paying out and what we're getting? I mean, there's no, you can make up things and say drug deaths are down 30%, but guess what? That's probably nationwide right now because they're cracking down on the opioids. It has nothing to do with how many people you have, because if that was the case, we just hired 20 people.
That's not true, but you asked the 60 lives that were saved in the last year.
Right.
I think those families are probably glad that we're working on it.
Oh, I understand it, but you can't. What about the taxpayers? That's my bottom line. Who cares about the taxpayers in this building?
We do.
Well, I don't see it, and a lot of people out there aren't seeing it either. Okay, go on.
To touch about the salaries, benefits, and debt service, the debt service payment is not increasing. The debt service payment is the same as it was. We have not increased any debt.
Yeah, but the cost of the debt's going up, right?
They were scheduled payments, right?
They've been scheduled payments through the term of the debt. So,
And then the other thing is that most of this accumulation of wealth that the county has is coming from property taxes. Again, that affects every citizen, whether they're old, young, whatever. And we know we're going to lose this tax appeal, okay? So we're going to get crushed. So these people in this room need to start thinking about that instead of themselves. Think about the good of the county, which no one does, you know. It's about kingdoms. I'm done.
any other questions for Corey before we move forward? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Corey. Solicitor's report.
So we touched on the tax lien. Is there anything, did you guys have any further questions or anything further to add? than what I previously said.
No, I don't have anything to add, but just to clarify, are you the point of contact with the IRS? Is that
I'm in the process of trying to do that, yeah. There's a form that has to be filled out that I'm in the process of filling out and getting to the IRS to hopefully get information on what exactly encompasses these liens that they filed against us.
And it's a bigger discussion than just fixing the problem as it is. How did this happen? How many
That's
letters
it.
came in? Who did they go to? Who were handling them? Who called the IRS? Why weren't we notified? There's a lot of things that I think the board is not only concerned about, but we want to absolutely make sure that the IRS is taken care of. The secondary, how did this happen?
Well, the thing that concerns me the most is when you said 2016. Surely there's been documentation going back and forth since 2016 until 2019. And why did we just find out about it yesterday afternoon?
Yeah, logic would dictate that this wasn't the first time that we got notification that there's going to be a lien placed. In this case, the lien filed.
This is the first time the board or the solicitor's office.
Correct.
was notified.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah, I was at an IDAC meeting at community college when I saw the email.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions out there that need answers to. We'll get those answers, and once we start getting those, we'll keep you informed. Last week, we talked about Brush Creek with meeting with local members of municipalities in that general area. We are trying to coordinate a date next week. Once that is finalized, I'll let the board know. If any of the board wants to attend, that's fine. It will be representatives of my office, the Sheriff's Department, and DPW meeting with officials in that area. To go over some of the resolutions listed for tomorrow.
Can I stop you for 1 second? I want to give you this because it pertains to that. I had a woman that they own McElwain Motors, and they would like to donate the material, and the Riverside High School at Wood Shop would like to make these mile markers, and they would like to know if they can do that.
Okay. We'll address that whenever we
Is there contact
hold our
information?
meeting. Yeah, I can probably get Malcolm when he's in.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it's not the same person who's with the high school?
She coordinates.
Right.
One of her children are in the shop.
Okay. 2 through 6 in the resolutions lists assessment exonerations. Number 7 and number 19, court administration has been working with local municipalities for evacuation areas for the district magistrate's offices. These are agreements to provide emergency shelters for the magistrate in Hopewell and the magistrate in Ambridge. These have been sent out to various groups throughout the county for the different magistrates. These are 2 of the ones that we've gotten back that have been approved and just need approval of the commissioners. And once again, they would just be for an emergency evacuation or shelter if those employees would have to leave the actual magistrate building. Number 11 is the farmers market, which is scheduled to start this Saturday and run through every Saturday through December 21st here in the back part of the courthouse. Number 12 is just an extension from a previous contract, raising that an additional $1,250. 13 is for the jail to provide medical care for the inmates. This is an extension through the end of the year. At the end of the year, this contract will be rebid out. 14 is for providing telephone services for the inmates at the jail. 15 is a contract to restore old deed books. There are 16 old deed books that are going to be restored for the cost of $45,000. And these are deeds, I think, that date previous to like 1800.
1800s, yeah.
So they go a long way back. You see the ordinance listed down at the bottom there. This is for our insurance. It's an intergovernmental agreement, which anytime you do an intergovernmental agreement, it has to be done as an ordinance. What it basically is our risk pool for the insurance that we're joining in with P Corp and other counties in order to establish our pool for the insurances. 31 is through HR. Is a situation where you have employees who are asking to take time off without pay whenever they have banked days that they could use. So for instance, an individual has no more sick days, but they have vacation days. These employees are calling in and not wanting to use the vacation day, but wanting to take time off without pay. What this policy would say is that if you have any time available to you, you have to use that time before you can take a day off without pay. Number 32 is for the use of the softball and baseball fields. That's established at $20 a game, $20 per field. And then 33, and there will be a 34, these are for the election machines. One of the agreements is going to be for the system itself, and the second one is going to be for the loan agreement. Doreen was down in my office this morning finalizing those, so those will be on the agenda tomorrow. This is with ES&S that we previously already gave the thumbs up to move forward with. So any questions on the resolutions? And if there isn't, I do need an executive session to discuss personnel matters.
Any questions on the resolutions?
Yes. Number 12, that is the, for the attorney for the elder care.
Yeah.
Is that a rate that is a state rate, or is that something that the Office on Aging develops on its own?
The Office on Aging sets that rate.
Okay. Is that in line with what other counties pay an attorney?
I can check and
It
say.
seems like 62. I don't know how many cases that person handles. It's hard for me to judge when I don't know how the numbers behind it. Like, I know how much work you and Nate do, therefore your wages is, but I don't know this.
Okay.
Is that a do not exceed?
Yeah, it's a do
Yeah.
not exceed contract. It's just, this is adjusting it up an additional $1,250.
Yeah. You mentioned about number 14, the jail telephone. And am I reading this correctly? It is at no cost to the county?
Correct.
Who do I send a thank you card to? So, the Salvation Army, looks like we're allotting $10,000 for bus tickets for homeless and near homeless people, which is a good thing. And also $39,000 for the homeless shelter, Lord of the Harvest, which is also very nice. The Beaver County Transit Authority on number 30 for elderly care. It's at $500,000. Is that pass-through money that we get from the state and send over to them? And do we take that into consideration whenever we allocate our portion to give to them as a quasi-government?
It is pass-through money. What this proposal here is to increase that an additional $11,000.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something we take into consideration? I don't know that. I could check into that.
Okay. And that was all. You touched upon a couple of things that I had questions on and answered them.
Any other questions for resolutions? And personnel for executive session?
Correct.
Board of Commissioners?
I just had three things. Garen, you talked about the Brush Creek meeting update, so I just want to let everybody know the sign on Route 18 for Buttermilk Farm, Buttermilk Park is up. We had people come in and question about it, and the very next day it went up. So. And Shelter 2, of course, Dan Koval's not here, so I think they should be underway fixing that roof where the tree fell on it, on the wiring problem. So hopefully that'll get done and we'll be able to rent out that pavilion.
Commissioner?
Wanted to let the public know that the commissioners all were in attendance to welcome Senator Casey. He came in to talk about the rising cost of health care. And I believe either you or Dan or both of you attended a youth building meeting. And
I did. It was just myself.
How did that turn out?
Garen was there as well. That was with with Lisa Signor and Lisa
Trelawney. Yeah, they're looking to apply for a grant through the federal government that would essentially be a situation where they can use local groups, which they would want to use Tiger Paws and some of the other facilities or entities that we have in the county, for assisting or for having kids 16 through 24 sort of as a work starter program, sort of help them get started in some type of skill or job that they can then use moving forward. So all they're doing right now is applying for the grant.
Okay.
I think the grant application is due by May.
I think it opens in May.
It opens May, right? And it's I think it's runs through September or something like that. So they said that a lot of times with this program, you may not get it the first time, but you have to keep on applying. And this is the first time we're applying for it. They just wanted to bring
it's
it
a
to our
grant
attention.
between $700 and $1.1 million, and what they'll do is actually they will be a certified apprentice program for youth. So whenever they graduate high school or a trade or a 2-year college, they can then go into the trades. They said 3 of them were given out last year. One was in Philly, one was in Allegheny County, and one was in Erie, which is normally where the money goes. But they said they will apply. I brought up to Senator Casey, and they will write a letter of support when the county does pursue that. But they were just getting their ducks in order and wanted to inform the board that they were doing it. There's another group out there with Judge Ross. Do you remember the name of it?
I don't, but I spoke with Chad McMillan, who's affiliated with them, and informed him about it. And he said
there's no conflict.
This wouldn't be a conflict. It wouldn't be
They want us to check on that to make sure they weren't going to be conflicting
or competing with them.
Yeah.
And we also spoke with Senator Casey about the importance of 1,000 jobs over at the nuclear power plant.
Yeah, concern.
Yeah.
Sure. Let's see. I had Tim. You mentioned Earth Day, and also it's like Earth Month because you know I've been seeing a lot of volunteers along 376 and along our highways. You know, wearing the yellow shirts, and I know some of these people and they're doing a fantastic job picking all this garbage up because the bags are there and you can see them. So I know we really appreciate that because we want a better Beaver County.
To touch base on it as he sits smiling over there, Lee that works in Sid's office started a group called 376 Reasons Why to Clean Up the Highway. So she put together a group, and she's on May 11th. There will be a group of volunteers cleaning up the interchange of Monaca, so on all 4 exits to clean up the highway there. So
It's catching on. So that's nice. Also, the Beaver County 4-H is hosting a spaghetti dinner that is at the Independence Township Community Center. If you'd like the information, I'll leave it up here. And I'm assuming that we're going to be talking K-9.
yeah. The only thing other than that I have is if we could get with the law department and HR to revisit our travel policy and a couple other policies that we have. We'll make a list and just visit those, I would say yearly, and upgrade them. I see we did do one that's on the agenda for tomorrow, but there's going to be a list coming your way from the board asking to review them. The K-9, we brought it up last week, but we didn't talk too much about it. To give everyone information, I held a meeting at the Emergency Services 911 Center, and it was there were representatives from the sheriffs, district attorneys, 911 personnel were there. Our law department, we had one representative, myself, and the overall consensus was the chiefs of police. The overall consensus was that the chiefs of police did give us a support letter there in full support of adding another K-9 to the county sheriff's department. The district attorney made a a case or gave his opinion and they're in favor, there will be a K-9 that does go out onto the drug task force and ESU if need be. But since I was there myself, sheriff is here with representatives. If the sheriff would like to discuss it at all, if the board has any questions for the sheriff. The only question I have, and I'm happy that your staff is here, is if the board doesn't decide to do this right now, how long, and Mike's here as well, I don't know if he can answer this because the grant went through the Humane Society, how long can the county hold on to that check before having to return it to the Bennett Office of Foundation?
I think we had a date sometime this month that they expected that money to be deposited in our account. Jen, I'm looking at you because I don't have an actual date for that.
I emailed their representative this morning to try to get an answer on that. The fact that the check is still sitting at the Humane Society, I'm not sure what they think about that, so I have to hear back from her.
I thought you gave the floor to the sheriff.
If the sheriff would like
I'm here to answer any questions. I
He's here to
think
answer.
we covered this ad nauseum. I think Mr. Camp gave an expression of what took place at that meeting as 100% positive from all those entities behind bringing on a second K-9 to the sheriff's office. I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Because I wasn't at that meeting, so are we gonna lease it or are we gonna own it?
So either one works for me.
Okay.
I know that Mr. Camp expressed some reservations about leasing a K-9. We've given him the option to purchase that at a nominal fee for $1.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
Purchase
this-
and or lease?
Yeah, sure.
Purchase.
Whatever works best for you guys. Again, I don't know that there's a municipality that would turn down what we're looking at. We're looking at basically getting a dog for virtually free. We've got a trained handler. We've got a dog that's certified. There's no startup time involved. We can, as soon as that dog gets certified again this time, we'd be up and running. No cost to losing that deputy for the period of time that they would have to train that dog. Again, we'd be up and running, and we have the Roethlisberger grant money in place to cover the maintenance costs for future years and equipment and so forth. So it's kind of
If we leased the dog, we had 30 days, a 30-day open and closed door where we could, let's say the office changed and there's somebody new and they want to change it. So it'd be a 30-day window, right?
And I would.
But if we bought the dog for $1, how would that option work?
Again, the county's not out anything. Let's
Right.
start from that premise. The county's not out anything. Whatever agreement that the county comes up with through the solicitor's office, I think we could make that work. The standard practice in law enforcement is that if a dog retires, it's then given to the handler. You know, if we were putting out a lot of money to purchase a dog, that might be a concern. We're not. The county doesn't lose anything under those circumstances, and again, if we sought at that time, and that's being speculative at this point, we sought at that time to bring on a dog to replace that, then we'd work out some ways to do that. Again, we looked at ways to keep this from costing the county money, being cost effective here.
I think that ways to save the county money is to have the dog placed at a municipality where they have investigative powers.
Yeah, and
utilize
the
the
only
dog
issue
there.
with that, we're not using this to conduct investigations. We're using it to assist multiple police agencies. And so when you put it in a particular municipality, it's great for that municipality, but that may not provide the opportunity for other municipalities to have access to that canine. One of the examples that I can give you, and without talking about any particular places, some municipalities have agreements with their police departments that if they don't have a specific number of officers on duty at any given time, in other words, if that dog and that officer leave the county, they have to call someone in. And that's cost to them at overtime costs. So with us having access to the entire county,
we now have that dog available, that canine dog available throughout the county, including many rural areas that would not have the ability to have a canine. And the use of that canine would not be cost effective for that municipality to purchase and maintain a dog.
Back 2 years ago when the canines were disbanded, and we had that, it was a lengthy discussion. I think it was quoted about it being a budget concern, and it certainly was not a budget concern for me. My concern was that there was a canine fund that donations were made to on behalf of citizens thinking that they were helping the Beaver County canines. That fund could not be found.
So maybe it didn't exist.
Well, there were 500 people that went to Thursdays or wherever where the Miller Lake girls were and raised
Can I
money.
interrupt you there? That wasn't ours.
Yeah,
That wasn't for us. That was for Senator Monaco.
Not at all.
We have someone blame that on us. We had nothing to do with that.
Okay.
So
So that's not a Beaver
That's not
County
ours.
canine fund.
it was not ours.
Okay. All right. And was the fundraiser for the training for the American Working Dogs workshop that was held in May?
No.
So where did that money go?
Well,
It was hosted by
that had
the
nothing to
sheriff's
do with the Beaver
office.
County Sheriff. We hosted it, but the Beaver County Sheriff's Office received no funds from that. It's a 4-day training, okay? I'm gonna explain this one more time. 4-day training.
Please.
150, or I think it was $135. 75 plus 25 goes towards the American Working Dog. We feed everybody every day, and they get a T-shirt. So if you could figure out how much money we made on that,
And again, that's through American Working Dog.
that's nothing to do with the sheriff.
Nothing to do with the sheriff.
We just hosted as, you know, what I mean, as hosting. We didn't profit. Nothing came from that.
And again, you may have to explain this to
Okay.
me more times because I still don't understand how you're saying that no money was made. If it's hosted by the sheriff's office, you're training in a county facility using county forfeiture drugs to
No.
use.
Negative.
Okay, working dogs brought their own cocaine?
No.
No? Okay. So explain to me how that works. And I'm sorry, you are,
Rich Eliski.
okay, so you own American Working Dogs?
No.
Okay. You own what? Canine North? Canine North?
I had it for a while, but I haven't done business in a few years. I might still have a website up or something, but I don't think I have a website anymore.
All right. So this is where my concern is I can't understand.
You're saying we're profiting, is this what you're saying, that I'm profiting off canine? Is that what you're saying?
And I want to understand what is actually happening with the dogs that we're going to be having and paying for the county. My concerns were, at that time, 2 years ago, those were my concerns. And just because we let 2 years lapse doesn't mean that those concerns go away.
I'm still not sure what your concerns are.
And I'm not either, and I think we're talking about moving forward. None of these things touch on the Beaver County Sheriff's Office.
The American Working Dog Association was started a long time ago. It's an association worldwide. You have thousands of members. I pay dues like anybody else. That's it. Now, if I go do business for them certifying dogs, that's between me and American Working Dog. They do not pay me. It has nothing to do with the Beaver County Sheriff's Office. I'm a member. I've been a member for about 8-9 years. That's all it is. Association, just like NAPAWADA, just like the FOP. It's the exact same thing.
Okay, so that organization, say like the NRA, they have filings. They're an organization that I could join.
Yes.
And they have they're incorporated or whatever it
Yes.
is? Okay.
I don't think he can speak about American Working Dogs other than a member.
I'm a member, and I'm a trainer.
I'm not
too,
sure
that's
what
it.
you're asking him about American Working Dogs.
Well, because that came
He's a
in.
member.
Because that came into play whenever,
So
It-
ask American Working Dogs, is what I'm suggesting to you. I'm not sure I understand what that has to do with bringing on another canine.
I'm not a representative for them. I'm just a member.
okay. It's because the sheriff's office was involved in all of it.
A lot of police departments, sheriff's office will host seminars through other, like, organizations, okay? A sheriff's department of Ohio might host one. A sheriff's department of Florida might host one. It doesn't mean they're profiting, it just means that they're using the facilities, that's it.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions for the sheriff before we move on? I would like to, I know time is of the essence for this, I'm just looking at the calendar here, to make this decision by our May 9th meeting. If you could get information back to the board about the funds and how
What
long.
funds?
The Ben Roethlisberger
Oh.
grant, I'm sorry, the funds on the Ben Roethlisberger grant, how long we have it until we have to return it. I know she's reached out to them,
Yeah,
so
we'll
if you
have
could
to
get
make
that back to us. And then the only other question I guess I would have is, when Commissioner Rodeo asked, if for some reason we would get rid of the second canine, let's just say January 1 of next year, do we have to return that $10,000? What is the policy on that? Can you look into that as well, please?
We can get an answer for you,
Mhm.
but legitimately, if we're not gonna be using those funds for that dog, I mean, I think ethically, we should be giving it back to the Roethlisberger fund. I mean, that's the only right thing to
Well,
do.
you might have used it.
Yeah, I mean, for
You might have
training,
used
for
that
equipment.
10,000 for equipment, so what
Yeah.
happens if we don't use that equipment?
Well, we still have a canine, so, I mean, some of that equipment is gonna be used either way.
Okay.
But I think it's the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah, I
is to
agree.
make sure
Then some
we
stuff like that can be donated to others.
Okay.
Sure.
And where will the canine come from?
That's a canine that is owned by Deputy Brown currently,
Okay, and how, trained by,
trained by Deputy Brown.
okay, through what organization? Who certifies them?
American Working Dogs.
American Working Dogs. Okay.
Is American Working Dogs, we have, I think, we talked about last week, 7 canines currently in the county? Or is that who trained most of this?
I
No.
think.
American Working Dog don't train them. We train, like Jimmy's dog.
Certified, are they certified through?
They certify some through other organizations. We do some in Allegheny County. We have a seminar coming in May. It's gonna be Coriopolis Police Department's hosting it. You know, they're hosting the seminar. Police departments from Florida, New York will be there.
Okay.
Lawrence County, Allegheny County. They'll come in 4 days, they'll certify their canines. Deputy Brown could certify his dog here too. Since I had dealings with Jimmy and we trained together, he will be trained, he'll be certified from somebody totally different. I'll have nothing to do with the certification.
You're not gonna certify the.
Not
current-
any
the-
dog I had anything to do with training, I will not certify because that's shows bias. So it'd have to be someone from another agency to certify,
Okay.
another certifier.
I think we talked about this at the roundtable, Mr. Camp. That certification is above and beyond any state requirements. So there are no state requirements requiring any type of certification. We're taking that additional step because we think it's the right thing to do.
How many states do have requirements? Are there a few? Just a few?
I know Ohio does, maybe
A
Florida.
handful.
Yeah, it should be every state, but fortunately it's not.
And Sheriff, you made a comment that, when I asked about the Beaver County Canine Fund, you said maybe it doesn't exist. Is that true? It doesn't exist?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with it. I'm not part of it. I don't know. You brought it up, I didn't.
Well, I brought it up because I'm concerned of where that money went. Because it's a Beaver County Canine Fund. And I know that.
Tell me where it is.
I don't know.
I don't either.
I'm not in the sheriff's department. I don't know.
I don't have one. My point, I don't have one.
Did your deputies know? Did they?
Not that I'm aware of, I don't know.
Okay. The ones that are sitting here, do you have any idea?
I'd like to know where you get all your information from.
I get it
You've asked
from
a lot of
the,
questions
Sheriff.
that we've answered, but where do you come up with this
No
information?
money was ever solicited through Beaver County for our
Well,
dogs.
where did you come up with the Bud Light girls information? Who gave you that?
it was a flyer.
No, it didn't say anything about Beaver County Sheriff, so where did you get the information?
It was a flyer
For who? For Beaver
for
County Sheriff?
the canine.
I'd love for you to show me that.
Okay. I don't have that with
I
me,
didn't
but,
think. Thank you.
so do you, or is that a no? You
I
know
don't know anything
nothing
about what you're
about
talking
a Beaver
about.
County canine fund? Okay. That's a no. Or no?
I think I answered that question.
Okay.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Thank you. Or other business, any other business? Audience participation.
So where do we stand with the canine? I'm sorry, I think I'm probably speaking for everybody in the room. I'm really confused right now.
We're still waiting for more information, so as I stated, I like to make this decision on or before the May 9th meeting, I believe, so I was.
So
Are we gonna have a decision to make on, yes, we're gonna lease it, or yes, we're gonna own it, or no, we're not gonna do either one? Is that how
I
it's
think
gonna
the decision is going to be yes or no on either one.
Okay.
Is
On
what,
all of the options?
all the options.
All the
For-
options.
Yeah, yes, so.
And again, if you need anything more from me, or to work with Karen or the solicitor's office, you just.
Those are the only two
you
questions
let me
that I
know what
have.
you need set up and we'll take care of it.
with all due respect, how does knowing how long you have to spend the money impact whether or not the county wants to expand its canine? You guys have been talking about this for over a month now, and obviously there seems like there's a time constraint here. And I know last week we said we were waiting for Commissioner Amadeo to come back.
Well, because at the end of the day, come January 1, there might be a new sheriff. It is an election year. So I want to make sure we have all our ducks in rows, that we're not going to have to get rid of a canine for some reason and have to refund a foundation $10,000. So if they come back and say we have until a year from the date that we got it, there might be a delay on this. If not, we're going to have to make this decision, which I think.
When did you take ownership of the check?
We have the check that is dated April 2nd.
April 2nd.
So 20.
So I'm assuming that we'll get that answer probably today, once the email gets sent back, so.
Do you want us to keep the check at the?
Gary, just want the check.
Yeah, just keep on holding the check until we figure out what we're gonna do.
We have no idea what the contract said or anything like that. We just hold the money.
What are you gearing to towards May 9th? What is that? Is that another work session?
Well, May 8th is the work session. If we were to do it,
Okay.
it would be
Okay,
on May 9th meeting, so.
all right.
We'll get you all the information as soon as we get it.
Davina, any more questions before I move on? Yes, sir.
I'm Dennis Garrett, representing the Wacom chapter of the North Country Trail. I was here recently requesting a waiver on the mapping data from the county, which wasn't agreeable to the commissioners. Your Director of Recreation and Tourism has offered to fund that $300 fee for the mapping acquisition by the Wacom chapter. We're treading water on this project, closing the gaps. The other three counties are on board, but we're waiting to hear from Beaver County, so I'd like to get an update on that if I could.
We have that in the law department. We're still reviewing it. If you can give me your contact information afterwards, I'll get in contact with you once we get it, once we talk with everyone to get a definitive answer for you.
Could you give me any kind of timeline on that?
Next week or so?
Okay, I'll talk to you after the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Hughes?
I just have one quick question about the dog. I mean, that's a good idea, but this $10,000 grant only covers the care of the dog for 1 year, right?
Yeah, it's not just care. It's,
So then what happens? Who takes responsibility after that? The taxpayers?
yeah, and so that's a great question, and it could be the taxpayers. That being said, I have been approached by numerous people about finding ways to raise funds to maintain the canine program going forward. I can't make you a solid guarantee.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not going to be a dollar kind of money, but that being said, I feel confident that if we.
Yeah,
would find-
$10,000 ain't much when you got, if you have to pay for that dog for 7
$100.
years.
That's why there's a 30-day interrupt.
I know you're,
And who holds the liability? The county, right?
yeah, but we already have that insurance covered, and
Okay.
we've checked in, if you have 1 dog or 10 dogs, there's no difference, that was one of the
Okay.
things. I know your staff just left, but what is the cost to maintain a dog through a year? What do we budget now, I guess is the
So,
question.
the maintenance for the dog, basically, we're talking about veterinary and food, which is $500 to $1,000 a year for each
Is
dog.
what we budget right now for our
Yeah.
Deputy O'Shea's
I wish
dog.
I could give you a better number,
Yeah,
but
we can
somewhere in
get
that
that
ballpark.
information.
And that being said, this is gonna cover some equipment too. So it's not an expensive prospect moving forward for the basic maintenance of canines.
No. Yes.
I have a question. The sheriff, Pennsylvania is Beaver County in Pennsylvania is a 4th-class county. What's the definition of the sheriff's department in a 4th-class county? Are they a police department or are they an extension of the courts?
Is he asking?
Are you asking
The sheriff.
Yeah, neither.
They're not?
The
They're not
sheriff's
an extension
office,
of the
the
courts?
sheriff's office is a separate office. It's an elected official.
They're not considered an extension of the courts?
They work for the courts.
I rest my case.
There's a case.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the concern is that we have so many things that we're doing above what the county code requires. And you can only do so many of those until you run out of money. And you have to have a priority list of what those things should be. And looking at this, I agree, safety of our citizens are first and foremost, I get that. But through the years, there have been other boards that have elected to have, I think we now have 5 county parks that you're not able to patrol because you don't have the staff. And what I'm saying is we keep getting more and more things. And I'm concerned of, like Mr. Hughes is saying, he's being taxed. And to keep that low, I have to be absolutely sure that this is the right thing for those people who can't pay their taxes. And I'm sorry that one of your deputies thinks that, actually he was disrespectful, but I think that asking these questions, and I never once raised my voice, I think that I want to know the answers before I make a vote. I can't make a vote without fully understanding all of it.
So you guys make those decisions. I agree with that. But we're talking about a public safety issue that's virtually no cost. So I would think that would impact the decision.
I just think the bottom line is, again, it gets back to what we like to have and what we can afford. I'd like to have a Ferrari, but I can't afford one.
But if somebody gave you a Ferrari for free,
Well, I'd still have to pay for the gas and
if
insurance.
somebody was paying for the gas for you and then showing you drive around that Ferrari.
But there
I'd
are
go for a ride
Yeah,
with you.
that happens, yeah.
There are additional costs. You
take care
pay the deputy additional wages for that.
It's not wages.
It's a stipend. Okay, so there is a stipend that the deputies
Care.
receives. You have to retrofit a vehicle. Do we have another vehicle?
Again, those are things that the grant will cover.
Okay. Okay. And then what about the next year and then the next year and the next year?
I think I've
Can you
expressed-
apply? Can you apply again?
Sure.
For that?
I think we've covered that, I think.
You might have been in the meeting that I was not at, because I wanted to have this conversation
Covered
here.
it here too.
What? That-
Those costs and ways to fund this going forward, and how that Roethlisberger money will cover those things going forward.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other audience participation? Any reason to reconvene after executive session? we will move into executive session, not reconvene. Thank you.